Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Bees. My name is Humberto and today we'll be talking about one of the most frequent asked questions about bee pollen, which is does bee pollen ever go bad? I know that I've been missing for quite some time because I've been really busy about on my one-man business, but I promise that from now on I'll be posting videos and information more frequently. So stay tuned for today's video. So one of the most frequent asked questions that I get about bee pollen is if bee pollen ever goes bad. The short answer is yes, it can go bad. But there's a couple of things we have to consider about bee pollen. The first of it is if the pollen that you get is fresh or dehydrated. If it's fresh, it means that the bee pollen has been recently collected from the beehive, so the bee pollen still retains most of its moisture. So if that pollen is fresh, you have to keep it on the freezer or in the freezer for it not to go bad. Otherwise, if you keep it on the counter and with the temperature variations and with the high content moisture that the bee pollen has and the high protein content that bee pollen has, mold will grow really fast on this pollen. So the most frequent form that you find bee pollen is dehydrated. Dehydration on bee pollen has to be done very carefully because it has to be on a low temperature for a long time, so you won't miss any of the bee pollen properties. So your local beekeeper will do that for you. The other thing is if flavor is an indicator of quality, but the first thing we have to look into is what does bee pollen taste like. And just for a quick reference, if you have missed any of our previous videos about bee pollen, about the health benefits of bee pollen and what is bee pollen, just check out those videos on the card over here. So you are really informed about bee pollen. So the flavor can be an indicator of quality, but if you have never tried bee pollen, the flavor of bee pollen, it's going to be something really different from what you are used to in other foods. It has to taste earthy, if that means actually something, but it tastes a little bit earthy. It has to have certain bitterness, but it doesn't have to be bitter. If it's bitter, it might be an indication that the bee pollen has actually gone bad. So bitterness is one of it. The bee pollen has to be sweet also. It has to remind you of flowers. And then we go into smell as well. The smell has to be really flowery, really fresh, but doesn't have to have any off flavors or smells. If the bee pollen that you have in your house that has been stored for quite some time, if it has mold or if it has a really off flavor or a really off smell, it's better to throw it away and get a new one. So that's it about flavor and the smell. So for how long you can keep bee pollen? So again, it depends if it's fresh or dehydrated. If it's fresh, it means that it's really freshly collected from the hive, and you can keep it in the freezer. It doesn't have to be on the fridge. It has to be on the freezer at very low temperature, so any bacteria or mold will grow on it, and you can keep it for over 6 months in the freezer. Now, if it's dehydrated, the only things that you have to consider is that it has to be really well stored, meaning that keep it away from sunlight or very extreme temperature variations. And if it has been properly dehydrated, it will keep on your counter for over a year. Just remember that the bee pollen doesn't have to have any off flavors or mold growth on it. Okay guys, so that's it for this video. I promise that I'll be posting more frequently, so if you have any questions about bee pollen, bees, or bee products, just let us know on the comment boxes below. We'll be happy to answer them all. So as always, if you haven't subscribed to this channel and you like this kind of videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Click the thumbs up button as well, because it helps the YouTube algorithm so other people can find this kind of videos. So that's it for today, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.